Toxic masculinity, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot these days, and for good reason. We're living in a time where its harmful effects are becoming increasingly impossible to ignore. From violence against women to the pressure men feel to suppress their emotions, toxic masculinity is a very real problem, and it's one that we need to talk about. Now more than ever, we need to understand what toxic masculinity is, where it comes from, and how it impacts us all. This isn't just a men's issue, it's an everyone issue. Because the truth is, we're all affected by toxic masculinity, whether we realize it or not. So let's dive in, shall we? Let's have this conversation. Toxic masculinity manifests in various ways. It can be seen in the way boys are often told to man up or boys don't cry, reinforcing the idea that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. This not only stifles emotional growth, but also creates a culture where vulnerability is shunned. The impact of toxic masculinity extends beyond individual behavior. It influences societal norms and expectations, shaping how men and women interact with each other. It perpetuates stereotypes that can lead to discrimination and inequality in various aspects of life, including the workplace, relationships, and even mental health. For men, the pressure to conform to these toxic ideals can be overwhelming. It can lead to mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, as well as unhealthy coping mechanisms like substance abuse. The inability to express emotions openly can result in a sense of isolation and loneliness. For women, toxic masculinity often translates into a lack of respect and equality. It can manifest in behaviors such as catcalling, harassment, and even violence. Women are frequently judged and valued based on their appearance rather than their abilities or character, perpetuating a cycle of objectification and marginalization. Addressing toxic masculinity requires a collective effort. It involves challenging and changing the narratives that have been ingrained in our culture for generations. It means encouraging open conversations about emotions and vulnerability, and promoting healthy expressions of masculinity that do not rely on dominance or aggression. Education plays a crucial role in this process. By teaching young boys and girls about the importance of empathy, respect, and equality, we can help foster a more inclusive and understanding society. Schools, families, and communities all have a part to play in dismantling the harmful effects of toxic masculinity. It's also important to highlight positive role models who exemplify healthy masculinity. Men who are not afraid to show their emotions, who treat others with kindness and respect, and who stand up against injustice can inspire others to do the same. This isn't just about changing individual behavior, it's about transforming our collective mindset. It's about creating a world where everyone, regardless of gender, can feel safe, valued, and free to be themselves. So let's continue this necessary conversation. Let's challenge the status quo and work towards a future where toxic masculinity is a thing of the past. Together, we can make a difference, whether through education, open dialogue, or leading by example. Each of us has a role to play in this journey. Let's embrace it with courage and compassion. So let's dive in, shall we? Let's have this conversation. It's time to make a change. Look, no one likes to be told they're part of the problem. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's necessary for growth. We often find ourselves defensive, wanting to justify our actions or dismiss the issue altogether. But deep down, we know that change starts with us. But when it comes to toxic masculinity, we have to be honest with ourselves. It's not just about individual actions, but about the collective behaviors and attitudes that have been ingrained in us over generations. We need to take a step back and reflect on how these norms have shaped our interactions and our understanding of what it means to be a man. Men, we need to own our actions. This means looking in the mirror and confronting the parts of ourselves that we might not be proud of. It's about recognizing the times we've stayed silent when we should have spoken up, or the moments we perpetuated harmful stereotypes, even unintentionally. We need to acknowledge the ways in which we've been complicit in perpetuating harmful norms. This isn't just about grand gestures, it's about the everyday actions and words that contribute to a culture of toxicity. It's about the jokes we laugh at, the comments we let slide, and the behaviors we excuse, because only then can we start to change them. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in isolation. It requires a collective effort, a willingness to listen, learn, and grow. It means breaking the chains of harmful traditions and planting the seeds for a more inclusive and respectful future. This isn't about blaming men. It's about taking responsibility. It's about understanding that while we may not have created these norms, we have the power to challenge and change them. It's about standing tall and facing the future with determination and hope. It's about recognizing that we have the power to dismantle toxic masculinity. We can be the voices that inspire others to reflect and change. We can be the leaders who guide our communities towards a more equitable and compassionate world. We can choose to challenge harmful stereotypes. Every action we take, no matter how small, contributes to a larger movement. By rejecting toxic behaviors and promoting positive ones, we set an example for others to follow. We can choose to be allies to women and gender non-conforming individuals. This means listening to their experiences, amplifying their voices, and standing with them in solidarity. It's about building bridges and fostering understanding. We can choose to create a better world for ourselves and for future generations, a world where respect, empathy, and equality are the norms. A world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, free from the constraints of toxic masculinity. The power to create this world is in our hands. Let's own our actions and make it happen. Now I know what you're thinking. The term toxic masculinity can be quite jarring at first glance. It sounds harsh, almost like an outright condemnation of men and everything associated with masculinity. Toxic masculinity, isn't that a bit extreme? It's a term that often sparks intense debates and strong emotions. People have different interpretations and reactions to it, which can make discussions around it quite challenging. And you know what? You're not wrong to question it. It's important to critically examine the terms we use and understand their implications. The term toxic masculinity isn't about labeling all men as bad or harmful. The term itself can be divisive. It can create a sense of defensiveness and misunderstanding. Some people feel like it's an attack on men, as if it's saying that all masculinity is toxic. Some people feel like it's an attack on men. They might think it's suggesting that being masculine is inherently bad, or that men are to blame for societal issues, like it's saying that all masculinity is toxic, but that's simply not true. The reality is masculinity itself isn't the problem, it's the toxic aspects of it that are harmful, and that's simply not true. The reality is masculinity itself isn't the problem, it's the toxic aspects of it that are harmful. These toxic traits are often perpetuated by societal norms and expectations. The reality is masculinity itself isn't the problem. It's the toxic aspects of it that are harmful. These toxic traits are often perpetuated by societal norms and expectations. It's the toxic aspects of it that are harmful. It's the narrow definition of manhood that tells men they can't show emotion. This narrow view of masculinity can be incredibly damaging, not just to men, but to everyone around them. It's the narrow definition of manhood that tells men they can't show emotion, that they have to be strong and stoic all the time. This expectation can lead to emotional suppression and mental health issues, that they have to be strong and stoic all the time. That vulnerability is a weakness. This belief can prevent men from seeking help or expressing their true feelings. That vulnerability is a weakness, but in reality, vulnerability is a strength. It's a crucial part of being human and forming genuine connections with others. These are the messages that are damaging. They create unrealistic and harmful expectations from men. They can lead to a cycle of emotional repression and unhealthy behaviors. And these are the messages we need to challenge. By redefining what it means to be masculine, we can create a healthier and more inclusive society for everyone. It's about embracing a broader, more flexible understanding of masculinity that allows men to be their true selves. Let's talk about the inner beast. No, I'm not suggesting we all have a literal monster inside of us, but we all have primal instincts, drives and desires that can be powerful and even destructive if left unchecked. Think of it like a wild animal. It needs to be tamed, trained. This inner beast isn't inherently bad. In fact, it can be a source of great strength and resilience. But it's up to us to channel that energy in a positive direction. We need to learn how to control our impulses, how to express our emotions in a healthy way, how to be respectful of ourselves and others. Section 5, Taming the Beast Within. So how do we tame this inner beast? Well, it's not easy. It takes work. It takes self-awareness. It takes a willingness to confront our own biases and challenge the status quo, but it's possible, and it's necessary. We need to create spaces where men feel safe to talk about their feelings, where they don't feel ashamed to be vulnerable. We need to teach boys that it's okay to cry, to express their emotions, to ask for help. We need to redefine what it means to be a man in the 21st century. Section 6, a spectrum of masculinity. The truth is, masculinity isn't a monolith. There's no one right way to be a man. It's a spectrum. And within that spectrum, there's room for all kinds of men. Men who are strong and sensitive, men who are assertive and compassionate, men who are confident and humble. We need to celebrate this diversity. We need to embrace the full range of human experience, because when we limit ourselves to narrow definitions of gender, we all lose out. Section 7, the price of silence. The consequences of not addressing toxic masculinity are far-reaching. When men are afraid to show vulnerability, it can lead to mental health issues, substance abuse, and even suicide. When men feel entitled to power and control, it can lead to violence against women, homophobia, and transphobia. The price of silence is simply too high. We need to break the cycle of toxic masculinity. We need to create a world where everyone feels safe and respected, regardless of their gender identity. Section 8, towards a healthier future. So where do we go from here? How do we create a healthier future for ourselves and for future generations? It starts with education. We need to teach young people about consent, about healthy relationships, about the dangers of toxic masculinity. We need to have open and honest conversations about gender. We need to challenge stereotypes and promote equality, and we need to support each other along the way. Section 9. Finding common ground. This isn't about men versus women. It's about all of us working together to create a more just and equitable world. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together and that we all have a role to play in dismantling toxic masculinity. Let's find common ground. Let's listen to each other. Let's learn from each other, and let's build a better future together.